Seeing as I've just done a video on death, I thought I'd better do a video on life as well to balance it out. So, I said everyone deserves the right to have a good life, but everyone deserves the right to have a good death as well. What is it that constitutes a good life? Now, again, you can't predict from a horoscope the quality of a person's life. You know, there's the thing about a prince and the pauper. One person is born with privilege, one person is born in the gutter. But you can predict the way they choose to live their life from the horoscope, regardless of the environment that they grow up in. And there are certain points in the horoscope, certain patterns, which do suggest that some people do seem to want to live a joyful and happy life, the joie de vivre. I mean, Jupiter's vastly overrated in my opinion, but then this is a constant theme of mine. I am cautious of Jupiter's over-expansive qualities of promising more than he delivers. Nevertheless, people with a Jupiter-Mercury conjunction or a Jupiter-Mars conjunction, or for that matter an opposition, generally do seem to have an enthusiasm for life that's vibrant, fun-loving, stimulating, and perhaps a little bit superficial and uncommitted, but that's worth it to have the fun of being alive. Jupiter is seen as the joy bringer, and that's a bit overrated, but in certain figurations, especially with Mercury and Mars, Jupiter does bring not only enthusiasm, but also vitality. Jupiter with the Sun also brings a great deal of vigour. And these people are full of life, not always for the right reasons. Saturn is actually a bit of the life bringer. As I said in my previous video, Saturn conjunct or opposite the Sun or the Moon generally indicates a long and healthy life. These are the people who go through the first 40 years of crap, and then the second 40 years are going to be much better. They do all the hard stuff in the first half of life. And they always hit their mid-80s with their marbles and their mobility. That's a given with Saturn conjunct or opposite the Sun or Moon. And sometimes the ascendant and mid-heaven as well, although that's less likely. Saturn, I think, is as much the life bringer as the life taker. And a life well lived is a life long lived with Saturn. Uranus doesn't so much bring a long life as much more of a quality of life. Strong aspects to Uranus suggest that the quality of life that one lives is very much more stimulating, innovative, original and exciting, and certainly not boring. Boredom will always be seen as public enemy number one for people with a strong Uranus. And anybody with a strong Uranus in their chart, they need to feel that they are alive. They need to feel the joy of life flowing through their veins. A strong Neptune doesn't in itself give the vigour and excitement and stimulus that planets like Uranus or Jupiter may do. But it does create, whilst on the one hand it does create a more sensitive attitude and environment to living, it also creates a more aesthetic, subtle and refined attitude to living. And people with a strong Neptune, whilst it often depends on the nature of Neptune in their chart, often transits from Neptune will affect them more strongly than others. But people with a strong Neptune who develop their lives into something that is more aesthetic, artistic, quasi-spiritual, elegant, subtle, sophisticated, refined, these are the people that they will live a long time and get a great deal of subtle and gentle enjoyment from the nuances and the refinements of life, the artistry. And Pluto. Yes, Pluto brings a much deeper penetrative insight and a psychological depth into life, but it also brings a kind of humour which can be a bit dark at times, can verge on cynicism and irony. But at the same time, these are some of the sanest people on the planet, with strong aspects to Pluto from almost any planet in the chart. There is an accommodation within oneself as to the nature of life and death. There is an acceptance of mortality and the recognition also that death is not the end. that life continues eternal. And this is the truth as far as I understand it. People with a strong Pluto are much more comfortable with the idea of a conscious transition from one state of existence to another, which then suggests that this extrasensory perception, this extrasensory dimension beyond the physical that we live in, existed both before our physical birth and after our physical death. Life is transient, life is brief as we understand it. Stuck here at the bottom of this gravity well in a three-dimensional body where we only use 18% of our brain. The challenge, I think, is to expand our sensory perception, expand our consciousness, and perhaps the single best way is to do this with humour. My tag is the same as it always has been. Negativity can't exist where there's humour. Catch you later, world. Bye.